Let's talk about the pie. How has human evolution distributed non-financial wealth? And what does that mean for financial wealth today? Are there insights available from the levels of inequality or diversity that are found in human traits like height, strength, and beauty? Before commerce and financial systems even existed, these were the original measures of value and station in which human social groups traded. Each of these attributes is distributed in a diverse and characteristic way, which I propose has gradually established the acceptable bounds of inequality through evolutionary psychology in human history. Income and wealth allocation are some of the most understated and important components of how economies operate. They're complex, emergent distributions from messy, dynamic systems, and it's hard to tie a bow on them and ship a soundbite. One sees chart after chart, like the one below, where the global share of wealth belongs in an outsized way to a tiny fraction of individuals at the top. Here, we see the top 1% of wealthy people, the blue segment on the left bar, owning 46% of the total pie of resources on the right bar. One metric that describes such distributions quantitatively is the Gini index, which on one extreme is 0, a completely equitable distribution, and on the other extreme is 1, the most inequitable distribution possible, where a single individual in the population has all of the resources. The Gini index is calculated as the ratio of the yellow area in this chart divided by the total area under the 45-degree curve of perfect equality. Most experts agree that viable economies cannot exist at either extreme of the Gini index, but identifying a preferred value in the middle has historically been a matter merely of conflicting political philosophies and emotional appeals. How might evolutionary psychology inform this? This research explores whether there might be a theoretical and empirical basis for a preferred Gini index. I collected and assembled data for as many such human traits as I could find, and calculated a Gini index for them in a novel way, assuming their magnitudes to be analogous to levels or shares of a financial asset. See the illustrative example distributions of strength as an asset in this figure. What we find is that the values fall into a surprisingly intuitive pattern and range. In the figure, I plot the Lorenz curves and Gini index calculated for these natural human assets in blue onto the same plot of income and wealth inequality, yellow and orange respectively. It's clearly seen that the natural assets occupy a distinct and more equitable space on the graph, closer to the 45-degree curve of equality, from Gini of equal to 0.02 to 0.51. For most developed countries, the Gini index for income is within reach of the higher end of this hypothesized natural range of inequality, sketched out by these blue curves. Wealth inequality, however, is conspicuously outside that equilibrium range, and by its very nature is more long-lasting and impactful than a single year's salary. Wealth allocation in the U.S. has a quite inequitable Gini index of 0.82. Globally, this is marginally worse at 0.85. We can abstract this data to 100 representative individual people to get a real visceral feel for income and wealth across the distribution. I show 3 scenarios: the actual current state, a universe in which all the resources are equally distributed, and finally, in the middle columns, a universe where the allocations have been adjusted to a Gini index of 0.5. That's on the high end, but just within this hypothesized range of evolutionary equilibrium. One can see that these adjustments would result in a small shift in income distributions, but a substantial shift in wealth distributions. This would give the bottom 40% at least some kind of savings for economic stability, instead of essentially nothing. What are the implications of this research? Is it the case that this provides an empirical recommendation for equilibrium that's embedded in the human condition by our evolutionary past? If we believe that it does, it could mean a profound reordering of our public policy. Substantial additional research is needed on these interconnections and whether or not any explicit policy goals should be considered, but it's my hope that this research provides some helpful framework and insight toward these efforts. Check out my academic paper on arXiv for more details, and if you want to dig into the data and the code, it's all open source and available on GitHub. Links in the posts or comments. Thanks.